101.1 Introduction and the Three Big Questions. Hello and welcome to the Cosmic Experience of One. This is an awareness expanding course for human beings brought through by a wanderer / starseed from his sixth density united group. Being that human beings are in the third density and the sixth density is the highest density that interacts with the third density, the highest viewpoint possible is conveyed in this book. First, an introduction for this educational course will be given. After that, we will address the big questions everyone asks. Is there a God? And if so, what is God? What is the purpose of life? And what happens after death? Surprisingly, the answers for these elementary questions still elude most of humanity today. Not only will these elementary questions be answered, but this course also shares a plethora of the most important and fundamental information about life and beyond that offers a great expansion of awareness. Here is a summary of what this course covers: understanding the big picture, the structure and ways of the cosmos, the history of the solar system you reside in, which includes life on other planets, all the densities, which humans often mistakenly call dimensions, in this cosmos are explained, and the types of life forms that reside in them, how dualism and paradoxes play a major role in the cosmos, how higher density beings in the outer planes and inner planes guide and assist human beings and other third density beings in expanding their awareness, methods for balancing the chakras that pave the path for advancement in the cosmos, the dance of pre-incarnate plans, destiny, and free will, the reason for the veil of forgetfulness being placed on third density beings, which includes human beings on Earth, the history of religions and their origins, the human condition, the nature of sexuality and sexual energy, past civilizations on Earth, the strategies used by negative and negatively oriented beings and how they are effective, the harvest, coming Earth changes, the transition of Earth and humans to the fourth density, meditation techniques, mysteries on Earth. All of these topics and others offer the missing puzzle pieces to strengthen your understanding of the big picture and potentially provoke determination for self-work that assists you on your journey. It is time for it to be known. This course is set up and structured like a university course, where information builds upon itself, understanding 101 subjects in order to more fully comprehend 102 topics, then 103 topics, and lastly 104 concepts, which are mostly provided elsewhere. If you jump ahead to a certain subject without having absorbed the preceding subjects, you will be doing yourself a great disservice. The subject should be understood and learned in order. If you skip ahead to a certain subject of your interest, you will most likely misunderstand the concepts, or worse, think you have grasped the concepts and walk away with a skewed version of the topics. And some of these concepts are hard enough to understand even when laid out in sequential order, so do yourself a favor and absorb them in order. This consciousness expanding course answers the most important questions humanity has been asking, or ought to be asking, and since answers always lead to more questions, it also answers questions most have not thought to ask yet. The knowledge covered, even if only partially understood, has the power to change your perception and life in almost all its facets, giving you the opportunity to be liberated from the many prisons of the mind. Some of this non-transitory information offered in this course has been conveyed piece by piece throughout the ages, falling on uncomprehending ears or hidden away by selfish human beings who lust after power in order to assert control over others. Although such information in this course isn't new, it will be new to your current focal point of awareness. Knowledge is power, and I assure you that you are about to embark on the most powerful journey of your life if you apply your mind to this awareness expanding course, which is meant for all human beings. In secret societies, arcane knowledge is taught much like in a school. Members aren't taught certain information until they get high enough in the order. This method either unfairly holds back information from those who aren't deemed privileged enough, or because information can't be grasped properly unless one learns it in sequential order. One can't jump 8 steps of stairs at once. They ascend the flight of stairs by taking the next step in the staircase and proceed one step at a time. One of the reasons humanity has been held back is because these secret societies' arcane knowledge has been reserved for only the few that perceive themselves to be the elite. We are going to end that now. It's time to make this information known to all on Earth. There should be no information reserved for a select few on Earth. If you have the curiosity and determination, you have the right to be privy so you may expand your awareness. If a certain percentage of human beings on this planet understood and practiced the information presented in this course, it would be shared within the collective and naturally bring about sane civilizations working toward harmony instead of the current disharmony on planet Earth. This course not only presents secret society's arcane knowledge for all human beings, but reveals far more knowledge and wisdom than secret societies know. A drawback in presenting this information in this way is that there's no regulation in making sure one has mostly understood a concept before moving on to the next subject. So please, if you don't feel you've understood a subject adequately, go over it again and ruminate or meditate on it before proceeding to the next subject. This information is meant to be ruminated on and practiced rather than merely taken in quickly and abandoned. It's your responsibility to regulate and test yourself to evaluate if you are ready to take the next step up the ascension staircase. The keys to the cosmos are in your hands, as they always were. You just didn't know it. Who I am isn't important because none of this information came through solely by myself. This information, knowledge, and wisdom has been brought through in a team effort. I didn't want to convey this information by video, but I've been guided to disseminate it in this way because it's the most effective medium for spreading knowledge at this current time on Earth for those with no pre-existing platform. It has the potential to reach the greatest amount of humans this way, although our service is in the aiding effort and does not get caught up in the numbers. Instead of being the sole founder of this course's information, think of me as a dedicated messenger who has utilized experience and time on Earth to understand human beings' mindsets and ways to understand the human condition in order to more aptly explain these concepts with specific sentence structure, examples, metaphors, and analogies that most human beings can relate to and understand. I'm not going to share my personal profound experiences I've had on my path of remembering who I am, because those experiences are for me as yours are for you, and I'm not going to use them in an attempt to persuade you to believe the information shared in this awareness expanding course. It's your task to discern. I and we have no wish to infringe upon your free will. My personal experiences helped me remember what I already knew. Every being knows everything at some level in the tree of mind, but it's harder for one to remember if they've been veiled from it for a long time. Just as one feels it's extremely difficult, or even seemingly impossible, to remember what happens in the beginning of a long dream, not even mentioning all the cryptic symbolism within. You'll remember the ending of a dream more easily, but with dedication, willpower, practice, and tools, you can remember more of your dreams. This is a literal statement about dreaming, but it's also an analogy that'll help you grasp the concept of recalling knowledge that has been stored in your subconscious mind after the veil of forgetfulness was enacted when you incarnated into third density, known incorrectly to human beings as the third dimension. Some spiritual teachers have shared their profound experiences, and it was suitable to do so. But with the very wide scope of information, knowledge, and wisdom shared in this course, it's more suitable to offer the information without persuasion, letting you truly decide for yourself what's true or not. Whether it rings true or not to you, it's as it should be on your current destination on the long journey. No information or truth should be forced, no matter how accurate or important it may be. It's more prudent and important to tell you what I'm not rather than who I am. I'm not for or against any particular race, nation, political party, religion, ideology, or any other category that human beings use to identify and separate themselves from each other. The knowledge and wisdom presented here is for every single being on Earth and not on Earth. As a dedicated messenger, it is my honor and duty to assist in your growth of awareness. How is the information found in this educational course procured, and how can I get information like it myself, you may ask? This is covered in future topics, but in short, the best way is to do the inner work that assists self-growth, observing yourself internally as much as you observe others and the ways of the planet, and practicing meditation, which can open the door to your own connection to your higher self and potentially source energy and mind. There are many ways to pierce the veil of forgetfulness that's placed upon the third density, balancing your chakras and opening up the flow of energy to your indigo chakra, third eye, and connecting to source energy or mind through the violet crown chakra, so-called astral projection, remote viewing, channeling through a trance state, regression hypnotherapy, and balancing out your lower chakras in order to allow dream teachings are just a few examples. Another method is to listen to someone else, as you're doing right now, but be careful when you do this because most human beings are in it for the money, fame, status, or power, because that's what Earth's current broken system breeds the desire for. Humans are taught and socially conditioned to believe that acquiring these things is success, that these things make one content, but the opposite is usually the case. Humanity is still wallowing in unconsciousness because most human beings haven't been thinking for themselves, and instead readily going along with the status quo. Through self-work, you'll balance your lower chakras and then start working on your higher chakras. Once one has balanced their chakras adequately, from their indigo chakra they may go through their violet crown chakra to connect to their higher self and source energy and mind. Then one is able to glean information for themselves, but it may take a being more than one lifetime. Even halfway through this process, when one's lower chakras are adequately balanced, and their green heart chakra has been activated and actively being worked on, they not only may understand what real happiness, contentment, is, but feel it, as it will be their state of being. This course not only assists you on this path, it also unearths a treasure trove of other knowledge and wisdom that offers a quickened pace along your journey. Even when you have adequately balanced all your chakras and connect to your higher self and become aware of the oneness, you won't be perfect or fully enlightened. It's impossible to be perfect or fully enlightened while incarnate in the third density, so don't beat yourself up about your setbacks, and there will be many because you live on a planet where the things that aren't important are taught and socially conditioned to be the most important things in life. Some of you are aware of this, if not consciously, unconsciously. Either way, it promotes discontent and apathy as one's years go by. The carefree child all too often becomes a discontent or dispassionate adult when exposed to distorted experience after experience in a non-nourishing society. The pace of this effect has been accelerated in recent times, which will be explained. Besides the big three questions that we focus on in this introduction, the other topics related to the big three questions in this intro are only briefly covered, or not at all. They, along with certain terms you may not fully understand, are covered and expanded upon within the many subjects and topics throughout this course. Some of these topics won't even be covered until 103 educational levels because learning, as well as unlearning the many falsities taught in your earthly societies, requires a step-by-step process where the steps ascend and allow you to expand your awareness. Knowledge needed to begin your journey of going inside yourself and connecting with the information you seek is also eventually covered. Of course, it'll take a considerable amount of time and dedication to get there, but no teacher or guru is a worthy guide if they don't intend to prepare you and lift you up to where they reside so you no longer need to rely on them and can be spiritually self-sufficient. Those who say you'll always need them as a guru, teacher, preacher, etc. should be avoided, as they are human beings caught up in the illusory game of feeding their ego by using others to do it, or practicing selfish actions disguised as altruistic actions, sometimes even mentally deceiving themselves about their motives. Understanding the human condition is key to offering assistance. Let me use an example to convey how understanding the human condition is of the utmost importance if one wants to help themselves and humanity. Let's say you live on a planet that's very advanced spiritually and technologically. You decide to take an altruistic mission to another planet that's behind yours in its spiritual advancement. You are advanced enough to scan the planet and instantly learn their languages, but you can't just land your spacecraft and start teaching them due to the potential fear factor of such contact. Even though you know their language, you can't effectively teach them until you understand their ways of life, society, and mindset, because you won't be able to use analogies, metaphors, and comparative topics they are familiar with in order to help them understand topics they're not familiar with. Nor will you be able to construct sentences that are easily understood. You need to know their mental struggles and disposition in order to know how you can best assist them. Not only do you need to know all this, but you have to live among them and live their ways yourself firsthand as one of them in order to truly experience what they experience from an unbiased viewpoint. Only then can you understand them and know how to best assist them. This has been the problem when third density beings, earthlings in this case, channel information from higher density beings. Even though higher density beings are advanced enough to use earth languages to share information, their information almost reads like a different language because they don't know how to properly use vocabulary, sentence structure, and use analogies and metaphors to be effective. Even if they did, they still wouldn't be effective without living among the beings and knowing the aforementioned things. Therefore, 4th, 5th, and 6th density beings take on the mission to incarnate back down on 3rd density planets, Earth being one of them, to assist in the growth of awareness, especially during pivotal times like now. They have been called wanderers, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about wanderers in a later subject. Before closing this introduction, even after all that has been stated, I reiterate that you should discern for yourself what is true and what is not. Be a free thinker. Telling you to mindlessly believe the information in this educational course would make me no different from the unconscious controlling authorities on Earth. Now that we are done with the introduction, let's cover the big three questions. 101.2 Is there a God, and if so, what is God? You have most likely lived enough years on Earth to have formed an opinion on this topic through religion, science, or other forms of social conditioning. Some human beings have a rigid idea whether God exists and what is God. So much has been invested and distorted in the label God that it would be better not to use this label. Instead, we will use a label that is not so charged and does a more accurate job at explaining what we are talking about. Labels like the All, Oneness, the Great Central Sun, the One Beingness, or Source are all more useful terms because they already describe what God is, everything. We typically use the labels Oneness or Source instead of God for this awareness expanding course, but they are also just words, just labels. Yes, God, Source, does exist, but what is Source? That is the real question. We are not here to tell you that what you have been taught in your specific way of life or religion is wrong. Rather, what human beings call enlightened beings have brought forward knowledge and wisdom that later was transcribed into different religions or ways of life by human beings were originally in collaboration and agreement. These higher density beings incarnated on Earth at different time periods and within different geographical areas and cultures. So the language and customs of the place were used to teach the same knowledge and wisdom, but their words were either misinterpreted from the moment it left their mouths, translated to another language inaccurately, or had their meanings twisted by powerful individuals and groups throughout history in the name of control. Since religions were the most important aspect of a human's life in the past, and to some it still is, dictating what humans thought and how they lived their lives, naturally, those who wanted power and control over others used religions to their advantage as a tool, because nothing controlled human beings more effectively than the quote-unquote Word of God. If you disagree with what we are saying, that is understandable because much more needs to be explained regarding such an impactful subject. Religions and their origins are covered in a later subject. Right now we will stay on topic and answer the main question about what is Source/oneness. Source is not an angry old man in the sky. Source is not a he or a she. Source is beyond gender or any dualistic aspect in the cosmos. Source never judges or looks down upon you, as you are a part of Source. Everything is Source. There is nothing that is not Source/oneness. Freely, of their own volition, not forced, all beings seemingly fragmented from Source to play a part in the cosmos, the methodical illusion. We say seemingly because even though it may appear like you are separate from Source, it is an illusion. At no time is anything separate from Source in reality, as everything is connected in oneness. Everything from a human being, a plant, water, dirt, a planet, a sun, a rock, a table, everything is oneness and is connected through the ether with Source, just like how all internet-capable devices are invisibly connected to the global network via Wi-Fi. The global internet being source, Wi-Fi being the ether, and all beings and things being the internet-capable devices in this comparison. In the cosmos, the illusion, everything initially appears to be separate, but upon deeper analysis, which progressive, non-dogmatic science hypothesizes, we understand that everything is connected, whether it can be seen or not with the naked eye. So what appears to be fragments or parts of source acting separately is an illusion. The separation is an illusion, but the illusion is necessary in order to make the experience that source is seeking through the countless roles it plays in the cosmos. Nothing can be separate from source, as everything is source / oneness, including you. The materials of source are in everything and every being, everyone and everything in the cosmos. Even a table has some of this material. A table or any inanimate object is not a self-aware being like a human being, but it still has some of source materials and is part of source, or it would not be in existence. When source wanted to experience different roles and focal points of consciousness, source, which is intelligent and infinite, had to use parts of itself because nothing but source exists. The only building blocks to take from and use were from itself. You could picture source as a big ball of clay. More to reality, source would be an infinitely large ball of intelligently aware clay. Pieces of the clay need to be taken from the big ball to create anything, since nothing exists but the big ball of clay. And only in the finite physical world does it appear like the pieces of clay are separate from the whole. It only appears to the naked eye that there is not something in the metaphysical / unseen inner planes that is keeping a connection to all the seemingly separate pieces of source in the physical outer planes. All rivers flow towards and are connected to the ocean. In order for source to experience something other than its natural blissful state of being that is love, joy, and peace, source plays different roles like actors in a theatrical play. You may ask, if you were in a blissful state full of love, joy, and peace, why would you want to do something else? It is similar to a human being having a great meditation session that lasts many hours or days, but at some point they realize, this is great, but now it's time to do or experience something else, something different. Since Source's state of being is purely loving, joyful, and peaceful in an unending fashion, an illusion needs to be constructed to experience other states of being, an illusion where the pieces of Source have forgotten they are Source / oneness. Since you are both a piece / spark of Source and Source at the same time, since the concept of time is an illusion, but we will get into that later, you can stay in touch with that loving, joyful, peaceful state of being while you are playing your part on the illusory game board in the cosmos. You do this by staying present and keeping a portion of your awareness as Source inside yourself while you are doing whatever in the illusion. This is not wishful thinking, as you are a part of Source that is connected to Source, which also makes you Source at the same time. So your true state of being is also love, joy, and peace. All discontent states of being are the illusion. This state of being of Source is more recognizable in children who have not lived long enough in a broken societal system that has skewed their reality into thinking that being empty, discontent, dispassionate, or anything less than pure love, joy, and peace is their natural state. Although a child is full of energy, so they may not be peaceful at this stage, as any human parent knows. Once a being lives long enough and has enough experiences in non-nurturing broken society, they begin to bury their natural state of being that is love, joy, and peace until it is forgotten. Thus, the child who is full of life typically becomes the dispassionate adult at some point in adulthood. You are what you think you are. Your state of being is what you tell it to be. The state of mind of most adults is a clear indicator that you are living in a broken societal system, meaning a societal system that does not nurture and serve the planetary whole. You come onto this planet as a loving and joyful child, and through the hardships of the broken societal system that human beings collectively decided to create as their experience on Earth, a child ends up displaying the state of mind of your typical adult. If a child is not carefree, it is because their surroundings have been so harsh that they are starting to lose carefree feelings earlier than other children. As the dysfunctional societal system becomes more broken, one tends to bury their natural state of love, joy, and peace and becomes dispassionate younger in their age development. Heaven and hell are not places. They are extreme states of mind you choose to experience while playing your part, as well as experiencing all the states of mind in between those two extremes. Higher density beings conveyed this through channels or while they were incarnate on Earth as wanderers. But at some point or right from the beginning, as with many beliefs and religions, their meanings were misunderstood or twisted. If you are going to play a sport or any multi-person game, you need many players to do it. You cannot do it with one player. So Source puts some of its essence in different players and even a small amount of its essence in the unconscious of self things like the field, ball, and such, and an experience is had. Since Source is everything, even the roles that make up the villains, quote unquote evil, human beings and other malevolent beings, are all Source as well. Remember, everything and every being is Source. There is absolutely nothing that is not Source. At the heart of the illusory game board, there is a constant struggle between the forces of quote-unquote good and quote-unquote evil, but all are sparks of Source. The devil, Lucifer, or whatever or whomever cannot beat God because they are a part of God / Source. There is nothing that is not Source, no exceptions. The parts of Source on the game board playing the roles of the villains may be in control in winning at certain times on certain planets, just as the roles of Source playing the heroes may be winning. But either way, eventually all roles merge back with Source fully, and all their experiences are collected by Source. If you still do not understand exactly what God / Source is, or think the explanations given so far are too basic, do not worry. As we move along, more is offered so that a greater understanding may be held. One cannot properly talk about the details of Source without first laying down the groundwork to comprehend Source / oneness. Like taking 101 courses in university before taking 102 courses and so on. But you will be offered quite a good understanding by the end of the 101 courses alone, which also build upon each other in sequential order. Even the sentence structure and terms used in this educational course are less simplistic as the subjects move along. Since Source is everything, all future topics covered in this awareness expanding course further explain Source. Every topic offers a greater understanding of Source / oneness, And in doing so, you understand yourself more, as you are a part of Source and Source in totality in a timeless state. You may ask, why does Source do it? That brings us to the next question. What is the purpose of life? Why did Source create the cosmos? What is the point? 101.3 What is the purpose of life? There is a phrase you may have heard, as above, so below, as below, so above. This phrase is accurate. Even if you have not spent decades or lifetimes balancing your chakras up to stimulating your indigo third eye chakra to utilize the pathway through your violet crown chakra, which grants access to the energy and mind of Source to more fully comprehend this phrase, you can still put enough of the countless available pieces of the grand puzzle together to recognize the reoccurring pattern and design by using this accurate and meaningful phrase, as above, so below, as below, so above. It means there is a correspondence between the physical outer planes and the metaphysical inner planes, and the microcosm mirrors the macrocosm, and the macrocosm mirrors the microcosm in all realms in existence. One finds the same or similar patterns and relations repeated in both the metaphysical inner planes and the physical outer planes, the invisible and the visible, the big and small things and functions in the cosmos. The golden ratio's spiraling shape can be seen in small things like shells and pine cones, microcosm, and is the same spiraling pattern of a hurricane and a spiral galaxy, macrocosm, all of which corresponds and comes from the spiraling shape of life force energy, which flows in a manner depicted in the golden ratio. The layout of an atom, microcosm, with its nucleus, neutrons, protons, and electrons, resembles the layout of a solar system, macrocosm, with its stars, planets, dwarf planets, and debris. Just like the same basic functions of code can be seen repeated in a computer program, the basic codes of life are repeated throughout what can be seen and what cannot be seen in the cosmos. Let us use human beings, one of countless examples, as an example of the below and Source as the above. There is nothing more above or macro than Source, as it is everything. Everything is a microcosm of Source's macrocosm. When God created human beings in the image of God, paraphrasing the Bible, it means Source used parts of itself to create human beings, as well as the countless other things and beings in the cosmos. We can see Source's image in the countless examples throughout the cosmos, especially within self-aware beings like humans, because as above, so below, as below, so above. Example: a human is having a profound meditation session where they are experiencing extreme peace, love, and joy for hours or even days. But at some point the human knows that the wise action is to get up and do something else, because the human is aware that there is more to experience than meditation. Meditation is very important, but there are other things to do, be, and experience in life. Just as Source in its natural state of pure love, joy, and peace could simmer in its own bliss for what could be an unfathomable amount of earth time before Source thinks, "This is great, but let us try something else, something different to more fully understand myself and what I am capable of." Let us say you have been home alone for months. You may keep enjoying your solitude, knowing you do not need anything outside yourself, but it would be fun to do something with friends. You decide to create a game, a board game, a sport, a multiplayer video game, a theatrical production, etc., to interact in different situations to learn, enjoy, be entertained, and to know yourself more fully by acting or deciding what to do in different situations you have never been in before. You do it because you like having new experiences. Human beings create games for enjoyment, entertainment, and learning because they are mirroring what Source does. After Source enjoys its blissful state of being for countless eons, Source decides to do something else to know itself more fully. Source puts itself in countless different roles and situations to see how it would react, and these experiences are revealing, enjoyable, educational, and entertaining at the same time. Source wanting to know more about itself conveys the idea that Source does not know everything. Human beings are heavily programmed to believe that God/Source knows everything, but this is not the reality. Source does know every single minute detail within the cosmos, not only in real time, but before the players know, because Source is all players and of the nature of time in the illusion. But Source does not know everything outside of the cosmos. What is outside of the cosmos? The same thing that is inside the cosmos, only Source, as Source is everything. There is nothing that is not Source. So the only thing that Source does not know it fully is itself. What would a wise being do to learn more about itself? It would create experiences where it could not only learn more about itself, but enjoy the process of doing it at the same time. This enjoyment could also be seen as entertainment. Do you not enjoy being entertained? We can see that being entertained is one of the most enjoyable things for human beings. Just as human beings create a wide range of entertainment that includes all matter of light to dark material in all types of mediums, so does Source. Where do you think human beings get this attribute from? The more comprehensive an experience or game is, the longer it lasts, and more knowledge of self is gained, and the more entertaining it is. Human beings have created live-action role-play games that can be played day after day for years. Human beings create all kinds of games for entertainment and learning. Card games, board games, video games, sports, theatrical plays, movies, fictional stories shared verbally or in books, etc. Human beings are mirroring Source because they are a chip off the old block. Source creates the cosmos. How Source does this will be covered in a later subject. The cosmos, an infinitely comprehensive experience that offers countless eons of illusory time for entertainment and the chance to know itself more fully when it is experiencing countless different roles in an infinite array of situations. Just like a human needs other humans to play its games, so does Source. But since Source is the only thing that exists, it rectifies this issue by using parts of itself to be all the players. All games, once they have been played for a while, can be changed a bit, made more comprehensive, fair, balanced, and difficult to ensure more fun, entertainment, learning, and discovery of self. The cosmos was not created all at once. It keeps being built on. At first the players, the sparks of Source, were aware of themselves as being a part of Source and their connection to Source. There was no veil of forgetfulness in third density at this point. These were some of the first solar systems created, and at some point variations were made in preceding solar systems and galaxies to add aspects to the game that would make it more comprehensive, more enjoyable, and add more experiences that create more cause and effect scenarios to possibly reduce stagnation, which consequently offers more learning while also quickening the pace back to Source. Source had the variations of its players, sparks of itself, forget that they were Source in totality and a part of Source at the same time. And so the veil of forgetfulness in third density was imagined and applied to the mental projection of the cosmos. This is why you only remember your current incarnation in each of your third density incarnations. This variation in the cosmic game provided countless different experiences and situations to encounter. It allows Source to know aspects of itself much more fully. In this iteration, free will was also greatly expanded upon, which is covered in a future topic. One could consider this a major upgrade in the coding or engine of the illusory game within the cosmos. As human beings are aware, a harder and more comprehensive game with a diverse range of experiences is more enjoyable, educational, and entertaining, especially in the long run. And most importantly, Source could know itself a great deal more from such a range of experiences it put itself into. Now, let us look at a video game created by human beings to make it easier to understand Source's game or experience that human beings have labeled the cosmos. The good old saying, as above, so below, as below, so above, will assist us yet again. There are levels in a video game you progress through as you gain experience, overcome many challenges, and defeat the end boss for every level. You may ask, but why do we need to have challenges and an evil end boss? Because without them, you would not learn much and it would be quite boring. Imagine Mario blissfully skipping through fields of strawberries and stopping for an occasional picnic before he casually walks across the finish line at the end of every level, not even needing to see how high he can jump onto a pole at the end to assess what he has learned for that level. It would be quite meaningless and boring. Anyone would get bored of this game most quite quickly. Players would express, "There is no point to this game. Why am I playing it? Why does God allow such suffering and evil to exist?" Many have asked. Do you understand now? Without challenges, there is no growth, no change, no learning, less entertainment. Boring. You may say, but I would be fine strolling through strawberry fields forever and having the occasional picnic here, there, and everywhere. Well, after a while, you would get very bored of it and want to experience something different, even if the different thing was something deemed unpleasant for a period of time, because it is something different. However, God/Source does not create suffering on a planet. Human beings are given free will, and as co-creators in the experience, they can choose to collectively and singularly create suffering. Human beings and all other sparks of Source may choose to create suffering. It is not forced upon any spark of Source. Unlike a big government, Source does not limit experiences by taking away everyone's free will and rights in a particular area because of the few, and the actions of these few are necessary for the game to be effective. Every level in a human being's video game could be seen as a sub-density in Source's cosmic game or experience. We cover and explain how many densities there are in each aspect and goal of each density in a later subject. In every level of a video game, just like in every sub-density, a certain amount of obstacles and challenges need to be overcome. Lessons learned, growth acquired, and not letting the quote-unquote evil end boss stop your progression. Players that make up the quote-unquote good and quote-unquote bad side and their roles are extensively covered in later subjects. You have heard or even uttered yourself at some point, "God, if you're really there and claim to care, why don't you come down and end suffering and make Earth a paradise?" Or simply, "God, why do you allow suffering to exist?" As we stated, Source does not create suffering. The collective on each planet may choose to create it for themselves. To expand on this idea, suppose a highly intelligent and creative human being put much thought into creating a game for a group of their friends to play. At some point in the game, the creator of the game is not going to halt the game and finish challenges for the players or interject and interact in any way because they would be ruining the game they created for the players. The players are able to create experiences they choose to have without being interrupted. What would be the point of making a game in the first place if you did that? In Source's perspective, it makes even more sense why it would not intervene in its game, the cosmos, because it is playing the game itself, as it is the pieces on the board game and the one that created the board. Source is doing itself a favor and is not going to ruin the experience for itself, which includes parts of itself, by intervening. At no point does Source directly intervene in the cosmic experience, the illusory game board called the cosmos. Help is given to players who need it and ask for it, but only from other players on the board game, whether they be in the same or of a higher density. And then there are the players who choose to play the roles to assist and guide every single player, both of which will be covered in a future subject. Please be patient when we say material will be covered later, as this introduction would never end if we did not break the topics up into parts, and more importantly, most parts would not be understood or fully grasped unless preceding material is covered first. Source created the experience for you and itself to enjoy, play, and learn from. We say you and itself because Source is you and you are Source. Source is not going to ruin the game, the grand experience. Source ruining the game would not be a benevolent act. It would be quite the opposite. It would be robbing the players of their free will, which is the first and most important rule for the cosmic experience. For without free will, there is no experience to be had in the first place. Source is not separate from you or any other being. To be more exact, there is no separate being called Source or God that created the cosmos. Every being and everything is a part of Source, and that is what constitutes Source. Before the cosmos was made and experienced, all beings were one with Source as Source and collectively created the cosmos. Therefore, you and all other beings collectively created the cosmos and continue to co-create it as it is experienced. There is no separate being to blame for what happens on your planet or on any planet. If there was anyone to blame, it would be the collective of beings, which includes you, that took part in creating the cosmos, or what happens on a planet. Your higher self, being more aware than the focal point that is your present consciousness, is pleased with Earth and the cosmos because it understands the grand experience from a higher viewpoint. It would benefit an individual to cease pointing a blaming finger at some fictional being called God that is separate from the individual and become aware enough to know that they are and the collective are Source and created the cosmos. Typically, to not know this or not know it fully until later densities is how the experience was intentionally set up. Why we are revealing it now to you in third density will be understood later. Some of you may have been expecting some grand answer to the purpose of life, or think we are belittling existence by calling it a mere game. The grand answers and experiences are all in the grand game, and we have merely labeled it a game for better understanding, as it mirrors the games human beings create. But of course, the cosmic experience is infinitely more comprehensive and profound than the best game a human being could fathom and create. If you had to apply a human label to explain existence in the cosmos, a game would be the most accurate and revealing label. Although the cosmos is more like an infinite set of game boards that interact with each other in varying degrees and capacities. A player, a spark of source, journeys through countless experiences and profundities before the player finishes the game, merging back with source in their entire capacity. There is nothing more grand or profound than this journey, and if you were to understand only 5% of the cosmos, you would not hesitate to agree. The cosmic experience is infinitely more profound and awe-inspiring than living one life on Earth and then spending eternity in a place called heaven and hell. A single human being can create much better games than that, so of course Source would come up with a game that is infinitely more comprehensive, profound, entertaining, educational, and so on. If anything was blasphemous, it would be thinking Source could only create a game that is worse than a game a single human being could create. Having one life on Earth would be akin to having one try at a video game, only being able to play it once and then being judged for your single performance and being forced to spend forever in some ambiguous place called heaven or hell. That does not make much sense, and even a neophyte would probably come up with something better. Such a statement might come across as condescending to some, but we are simply relaying reality. Human beings who make video games want you to play them over and over again for enjoyment, entertainment, to learn and get better at them. And when you are thoroughly done with it, you can play a different video game. The same is for the cosmos. When you are finished with this cosmos, you can play the next profound and entertaining cosmos game, or even play a major assisting or caretaking role in the present cosmos game before moving on to the next cosmos game / experience. And after that, there will be another cosmos game, or whatever label besides cosmos the entities playing it decide to call it, and so on into infinity. Source is infinite, so the act of knowing itself is also infinite. Thus, the experiences to do so are also infinite. Some may say, well, if it's just a game and heaven and hell don't exist and God doesn't judge anyone, I can do whatever I want without repercussions. This assumption is incorrect. As you know, there are rules for every game, so it can be fair and properly enjoyed by all its players. You cannot do whatever you want in a human-created game because the game would not function. In Source's comprehensive game, you can do whatever you want, but there are rules for the game and consequences for performing certain actions. The universal law of balancing energy, which humans have labeled karma, could be seen as one of the major rules of the game. Unlike the corrupt justice systems on Earth, the universal law of balancing has no loopholes and is all-knowing, meaning no one gets away with anything. Everything that is in need of balancing will have to be balanced out at some point in a being's journey back to Source no matter what, and from your higher self's viewpoint, it is not considered judgment, something to be feared, or a hassle. Instead, it is seen as the right thing to do, an honor and a duty to set things right for what you have done to yourself. We say yourself instead of another because all are one in the oneness. So what one does to another, they are also doing to themselves in the highest viewpoint. All are one being. The kindergarten-like explanations presented in religions is why so many human beings in your current time have turned to science and have lost interest in religions that tout a holier-than-thou God, teach that human beings are insignificant sinners, and teach that you only live one lifetime. When humans lose interest in religions, they sometimes take the new viewpoint that God does not even exist. They are actually closer to the truth than the unrealistic God that is depicted in holier-than-thou God religions, so their new viewpoint is understandable, but still incorrect. It is comical to hear a being say that God does not exist, because they, being a piece of God, would not exist if God did not exist. As the saying goes, life is a journey, not a destination. The cosmos provides the journey, and the destination is merging back with Source in full capacity. Source created the journey and offers all the experiences within it to enjoy, not to solely focus on the destination and ignore the journey. When one realizes the destination is the same place where one starts, the journey is the thing, the profound experience to enjoy. If you did not want to enjoy the journey, you would have never left the destination. But here you are, so you did choose to enjoy the journey. Source creates each cosmos to know itself more fully, and in doing so is also given enjoyment and entertainment. You, as a part of Source, willingly chose to play many parts, have many experiences, what you would label good and bad experiences, to learn and grow, and understand yourself more fully by playing a seemingly separate part of Source to understand itself more fully. As above, so below. As below, so above. As Source can only know itself more fully by looking into itself as pieces of the whole with free will, those pieces, or beings, can only know themselves more fully by looking into themselves, which is observing oneself internally and doing the inner work. This is the purpose of life, the grand journey, the profound cosmic experience. There are more specific purposes and goals in each density, which we will cover later. 101.4 What happens after death? There is no such thing as death, the idea that you cease to exist, leaving the physical for good and entering oblivion or going to a mythical location called heaven or hell. The good news is that all these concepts are incorrect. What human beings call death is simply a transition that is as natural as breathing. It has happened many times and will happen countless more times for every individual. Human beings fear what they do not understand. If you understand our words before this subject is through, you will know there is nothing to fear about quote-unquote death. There is so much more possible pain and hardship to experience while living in a physical incarnation than after you quote-unquote die, or even while you are quote-unquote dying. So if you do not fear living, you definitely should not fear quote-unquote dying. The spirit is energy, and energy cannot die nor be destroyed. It can only transition. The one known as Albert Einstein said, "Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another." A most accurate statement. Source is an awareness that uses intelligently conscious love energy to inspirit light, which makes all physical forms visible in the cosmic experience. You discard your third density body after the transition as you would discard a car after utilizing it for a period of time. Both the third density body and car are made up of the basic chemicals on your periodical table. Nothing more, and they are recycled back to the planet where they came from. But your spirit and mind are never discarded and always reside in a type of physical body that is made up from the building blocks of the density or plane you currently reside in while you are in the cosmos. When you transition, your spirit and mind simply utilize one of your other potential bodies. Your brain was merely the organ your mind utilized to make the third density body function, but your mind is not your brain and continues on with you after the transition, as does your spirit. When a being eventually merges back with Source after countless incarnations and ascending the densities, the totality of their spirit and mind keep existing within the collective, but a physical body is not needed at that point. Thus, it is the mind and spirit of a being that God/Source made human beings and all beings in the cosmos in its image, not the physical body. The physical body is only necessary to experience the cosmos. We will explain the process of transitioning/dying. A feeling of coldness is felt right before one shifts out of the third density body and into the etheric body, the sixth density body, which is the same form-making body used during quote-unquote astral projection, which should be called etheric projection because it is the etheric body being utilized and not the astral body. The astral body is the physical body used in the fourth density. Those who first projected out of their third density body thought they were utilizing the lighter fourth density body, which humans have called the astral body, so they mistakenly called the act astral projection. The etheric body is associated with the indigo, third eye or pineal chakra. It is the form-making body and is the body that is always used in the metaphysical inner planes, which is where you go after transitioning/dying when you leave the physical outer planes. Your spirit and mind shift directly into the etheric body after you transition/die, leaving your third density body. The etheric body is always used in the inner planes no matter what density you reside in. Upon transitioning/dying, you automatically etheric project out of your third density body. When the shift happens, a heavy weight is lifted, so it feels great. In the etheric body, which is not your spirit, but rather a much lighter physical body, you float out of and notice your third density body, the body human beings simply call the physical body. Like all of your 7 potential physical bodies, the etheric body is physical but so full of love and light energy that its vibratory state is too high to be seen by third density beings. It is automatically invisible to third density beings. Your mind and consciousness are still intact as if nothing had happened. The shift is as painless and quick as the twinkling of an eye. Because there is no interruption in the streaming of your mind and thoughts, it usually takes one a moment to fully comprehend that they are still thinking and still themselves as they look down at their third density body, the physical body that some human beings think is the only thing they are. From your floating etheric body, you look down and see the grieving human beings at the hospital or wherever you are. These human beings are devastated and frantic at your passing, but you feel great, so it might be a little confusing for you to see your loved ones or hospital workers in such a frantic state when you feel so good and know nothing is wrong. You may not fully comprehend that you are not in your third density body anymore and wonder why they are so frantic, as you are all right and feel wonderful, having shed the illusory problems and worries accumulated in your third density body. Then you notice the third density body you used to inhabit and think, is that me? But how can that be me if I am here and looking at me? Or is that what used to be me? The transition can be painless. Pain is only felt for a period of time before exiting the third density body if the human being's higher self wishes to feel pain to learn a lesson or experience it, like anything else in one's incarnation. It is then your mind's perception as to how you transition to the inner planes, as the universe is mental or of the mind. The tunnel of light is the standard approach for those who are not set on imagining another experience for the transition. You may ask, but what about the humans who have died and said they went to hell before they were resuscitated at the hospital? That was their mental construct. If one believes strongly they were naughty enough to go to hell, or gives much power to the idea due to fear of going to hell, they may go to their own mentally constructed hell, because hell does not actually exist unless you mentally create it for yourself. Beings, whose chosen role is to assist in the inner planes, make attempts and eventually mentally get through to the being and guide them out of their mental construct of a hell, much the same as when a being is stuck on the Earth's surface planes as a ghost when refusing to enter the light, refusing to move on to the next phase of existence. There is always assistance in any case of need during the transition, as there are many beings whose role in the inner planes is to aid transitioning entities. If a being refuses to enter the light and move on and becomes a ghost, it does not mean they are stuck being a ghost forever. Assisting inner planes beings will always be there and eventually mentally reach and guide the being to the inner planes so they can continue their journey. If one strongly believes they will board a pirate ship that will bring them to the inner planes, that is what will happen. In the past, the boatman or ferryman was a mental construct many beings mentally created to cross over to the inner planes because they were used to unknown lands across the vast oceans which were reached by boat. When they transitioned/died, they were entering an unknown land and so mentally constructed a boat to do so, as was fitting for them. The tradition of putting coins over the eyes to pay the boatman is silly, as coins or any financial system is no longer in play in the inner planes, or any physical density above third density. The quote-unquote boatman has chosen their role and their reward is service to the oneness. Financial systems are only used on third density planets that are not spiritually developed enough to realize that such a system typically leads to a few enslaving the majority. The mental transitional journey is varied, but the destination is always the inner planes. Within the tunnel of light, or however the transitioning being wants to mentally make their way to the inner planes, after one has been exposed to enough powerful love and light energy, the silver cord that attaches the etheric body to the third density body is severed, officially ending that particular third density incarnation. This same silver cord can be seen when one is temporarily etheric projecting out of their third density body while incarnate. The chemical elements used or borrowed from the planet to construct the third density body are no longer inspirited with one's love and light signature and are returned to the planet. Like a book borrowed from a library and eventually returned, the book was never yours, only rented for a period of time to experience and learn. The returned chemical elements are now no different from any other chemical elements on the planet and have nothing to do nor hold any significance to the being that once borrowed it. Keeping or disposing these returned chemical elements to a particular place is spiritually meaningless. The transition being, no matter what their thoughts on the matter were while incarnate, no longer cares what happens to these returned chemical elements, as they now hold no more significance than the dirt that could be found anywhere on the planet. The mind and spirit move on, and the physical matter that makes up the third density body is abandoned and returned to the planet where it came from. If it is not the proper time to transition yet, the transitioning being who is not set to transition yet goes back to their third density body, so the silver cord is not severed and they become conscious back in their third density body again, resuscitated at the hospital or wherever. The transitioning one might be told it is not their time yet by loved ones in their life that have already passed over, or whomever greets them and tells them they had planned to experience more in that specific incarnation. Like waking up from a dream, the human being might remember the experience and be one of the countless human beings to tell their life after death experience. This is a life-changing experience because the individual now knows that there is life after quote-unquote death. It feels great, and there is nothing to fear about it. Scientists might tell these human beings that their near-death experience was only an imaginary trip from the body releasing chemicals like endorphins, serotonin, or DMT to ease the transition into death, which they may believe is non-existence. This scientific theory does not matter to the near-death experiencer because having experienced it firsthand, they simply know that it is real. It may be a negative life-changing experience to the individual that creates a mental hell for themselves, as they may think hell exists and that is where they would have gone. Although this can turn out to be a beneficial life-changing experience as well if the individual strives to change their ways in their incarnation to avoid such a destination since they are not aware it was only a mental construct. Regarding the silver cord that attaches the third density body to the sixth density etheric body, the silver cord cannot be broken by malevolent beings or by mistake. So one need not produce fear in it intentionally or accidentally being severed. Think of it more as an etheric cord rather than a physical cord that can be snipped like an umbilical cord. So whether in a transitioning state or practicing etheric projection, you do not need to worry about the silver cord being severed before it is your time. The silver cord assures that there is still a portion of one's spirit and mind in the third density body while one is occupying their sixth density etheric body. Etheric projection typically happens spontaneously due to experiences and abilities acquired in past incarnations. It is typically not an experience one can learn by merely meditating in their bed. Human beings interested in relearning etheric projection may find the Gateway experience by Robert Monroe to be beneficial. Again, most human beings are not able to learn to etheric project unless they have a rare past incarnation experience and are relearning the ability. But this audio-guided experience by the one known as Robert Monroe offers mental and audio techniques that provide a high probability for one to expand their awareness to some degree and deepen their meditation and mental focusing skills, which is an important achievement in itself, as meditation and mental focus are fundamental for progression. If a human being has a strong belief they will meet a particular entity while transitioning, that being's energy signature will be there to guide them through the transition to the inner planes. If a human being strongly believes they will meet Jesus, Buddha, or any other higher density being, they will. At least, they meet the projected energy signature of that being. Being of positive polarity, such beings are pleased to be of service. There are always beings to greet you while transitioning. If it is not the pre-incarnate planned time for transitioning, there may be a slight delay in the greeting, but it always happens. You will be assisted. There is nothing to fear or worry about in regards to transitioning. You might meet a being you had no contact with in the incarnation you just lived, but as the veil of forgetfulness lifts and past incarnations are recalled, you remember who they are and all your experiences with them as past incarnations come flooding back into your conscious mind from your subconscious mind, where they are stored all along. Regression hypnotherapy may be used to remember these past lives while still incarnate. During the tunnel of light, or whatever the mentally chosen transition method, a being goes as far into the love and light of energy of source as they are comfortable, meaning they climb the ladder of sub-densities and possible densities until the love and light energy of source becomes too powerful for their current state of consciousness. Where they stop climbing is the sub-density the being has so far advanced to on their journey back to source. You may think of it like an elevator ride, where you are automatically let out on the correct floor of the inner plane's sub-density level that aligns with your current advancement, or grade level, so to speak. Next, the being heals in what has been called the void, or the deep resting place, to transmute built-up traumatic energy stored from intense or emotional experiences during the last incarnation. The being rests there until the traumatic energy is distilled and transmuted. The more trauma, the longer the rest in the deep resting place. You may think of it as the most comfortable bed in existence. Just as one may relinquish troubles from day-to-day living by sleeping every night, the deep resting place relinquishes built-up traumatic energy from a whole incarnation / lifetime. It is releasing of unneeded strong emotions from traumas and intense experiences and is collected by source. Nothing of value is lost during the transition, or at any time on one's journey back to source, or when one merges back with source. A being does not lose their spirit, mind, experiences, or their personality / character, though a being's personality continues to grow and change throughout incarnations in all the densities, infinitely more than how much a being's personality changes during growing from a child to an adult during a single incarnation. Beings retain all that is needed, as that is what Source and every part of Source intends. Why would Source send a part of itself to have experiences to know itself more fully and then delete the mind with all its experiences? That would make no sense and be counterproductive. Each spark of Source is a part of Source and so cannot become non-existent, and every single experience is gifted and collected by Source. Using your computer references may assist with this understanding. Think of each experience as data that is stored on Source's infinite data bank. Since there is an infinite space in every piece of data assists Source at knowing itself more fully, there is no reason whatsoever to delete any experience, no matter how insignificant or terrible it may seem to beings who have not merged back with Source. After the deep resting in the void, and before the learning and planning for one's next incarnation, another resting period is spent in the inner planes that matches one's level of awareness so they can acclimate to their new surroundings and to simply take a conscious resting break, a relaxing vacation, so to speak. This break time will be expanded upon later in this subject. After the being adjusts to its new state in the inner planes and has had their vacation-like break, they go to the school grade level they are advanced enough to reside in. Like grade levels in Earth schools, one cannot skip to a grade level where things are taught that are not understood or only partially grasped. Each level has an adequate amount of advanced beings to teach, guide, and assist with planning for one's next incarnation. Just as you currently playing the role of experiencing incarnations on a certain planet in the physical outer planes, some of these beings are currently playing the role of guide or teacher in the metaphysical inner planes. You may choose to be one of these guides or teachers at some point along your journey back to Source. Some of these beings assisting in the inner planes have never personally experienced a physical incarnation in the outer planes, and may never do so. There are countless roles to play and experience in the grand cosmic experience. The inner planes beings who specialize in objectively viewing the life lived and who assist you at understanding experiences in regards to growth and what can be done to balance karma and progress in your next incarnation, lovingly and willingly aid the oneness by serving/assisting in this capacity. Besides the inner planes beings, the most assistance comes from one's higher self, which is their future self. There is no judgment whatsoever. No being in the inner planes judges you or shames you for anything you have done. Even the one known as Adolf Hitler was not judged. We use this example because this being is well known for the widespread death and suffering he caused, and to reiterate that no being is judged no matter how much suffering they caused. No being is ever judged, punished, shamed, or shown anything less than loving kindness, even if they have generated a lot of karma to balance out. The only being who might judge you is you in your focal point of awareness, and doing so would serve no purpose as it does not assist you in balancing your karma. Some beings choose to transition/die in groups in order to deal with group karma. What appears to be a great accident, natural disaster or otherwise, can be used by these groups to accomplish the plans they set up before incarnating, their pre-incarnate plans. An individual may think, "This is all great to know, thank you. Now that I understand it, and you make it sound so great, I'm going to go commit suicide now. Bye." The transition need not be feared, but there is nothing to gain from committing suicide. It only creates more karma and adds lessons to be learned, creating more work instead of less. One does not avoid anything with suicide. Instead, they make more work for themselves because they have to learn the lesson of fortitude, seeing an incarnation through on top of the other lessons they prepare for themselves for their next incarnation. They are not judged for committing suicide, but they have to go back and do it all again anyway, compounded with adding the lesson of fortitude, which is usually learned in a suffering incarnation that a being also wishes to leave. They return to that which they so desperately fled. Of course, at any time one can do the inner work and abandon the suffering in any incarnation. It is not an experience they have to have for the entire incarnation. A being plans out each incarnation for specific reasons. Even what can be perceived as an incarnation filled with strife has a reason. An incarnation with much strife gives one the opportunity to balance a lot of accrued karma. It benefits one to leave when they plan on leaving in the plan they set up before their current incarnation. But I have free will. You can't stop me, and if no one will judge me, sounds like a winner to me. Where's that razor blade? Yes, you have the free will to do it, and no one will judge you. But as stated already, it is not an easy way out, as you will only be creating more hard work for yourself the next go around, prolonging and adding to the suffering instead of cutting it short. You are not getting out of anything, as you will be going right back into a similar type of life so you can learn the lesson of fortitude. Second density beings like insects, plants, trees, animals, and such automatically reincarnate without partaking in the preparation for the next incarnation, as they are conscious / aware beings, but not self-aware beings yet. Early third subdensity human beings who are still working on base lessons like fear and the mental pain threshold only need a very small preparation in the form of advice offered and automatically reincarnate. For third density beings who are past the early subdensity stages, beings who have at some point activated the heart chakra, they prepare and learn in the inner planes for their next incarnation at what some have called the School of Knowledge, so we will use this label from here on to refer to it. In the inner planes, one thoroughly goes through their last incarnation with a more detached and unbiased viewpoint to assess everything: reactions to stimuli, mental and emotional effects from experiences and how they were handled, actions taken and why, one's motivations, attitude toward experiences, how one handled victories and defeats. Did one recognize their faults, or did they use self-deception to justify their actions? Did one help others when the appropriate opportunities arose? Did one think for themselves? Everything is covered. If one has a question or wants further guidance on a certain matter, one of the guides assists in that area. One's higher self has more experience to draw from and can view one's incarnation with even more removed objectivity. As we stated, no shaming or judgment is ever made by these advanced beings. After all, they are advanced. Such negativity is realized and abandoned by beings who are finished with the third density experience and have graduated to fourth density positive. When it is all done, one has learned many lessons and is aware of the steps to be taken in their next incarnation to balance karma and continue spiritually progressing as a being, a spark of source. The guides aid at matching beings up with other beings who will interact with each other in the next incarnation. One may interact with the same beings over and over again because of the built-up karma acquired in past incarnations. You may be their child in one incarnation and their parent in another. The greater good for all beings is worked out and plans are made that give the opportunities to balance karma and learn lessons to grow in awareness. Just as the being, the spark of source, was not forced to seemingly separate from source to initially play roles in the cosmos, nothing is forced upon a being during these planning stages for their next incarnation. One never has to experience anything they did not agree upon. That may sound like a surprise in your current focal point of awareness, especially if you are not enjoying your life, but your higher self is not surprised in the least. Since balancing karma is part of the requirement for progression, and every being is aware they want to progress while in the inner planes, experiences and situations are willingly signed up for so that spiritual progression may occur and the next subdensities or density be reached. Every being wants to advance, so they choose plans or willingly accept the recommendations given from the more experienced, advanced beings assisting them, even if the challenges planned for their next incarnation are significant. One does not remember their pre-incarnate plan challenges and goals after being incarnated into third density because of the veil of forgetfulness placed upon third density and to avoid abridging free will. It would be too easy and boring if one remembered their goals and mission. If one remembered and consciously adhered to a step-by-step plan all along the way, that would be infringement upon free will, and also make for quite a dispassionate player on the game board of life, knowing what is going to happen and what to do about it all along the way. This would not create the experiences needed to assist Source's knowing of itself more fully, and so therefore would be seen as holding little value, as well as lacking in enjoyment, entertainment, and true growth for the spark of Source. If a human being is born with a defect of some kind, or has an accident during an incarnation that leaves them paralyzed from the waist down, or some other debilitation, they are not aware they may have planned for it to happen before incarnating. And if one enlightened them to this reality, they would most likely get mad and say, "Why would I choose this suffering, this horrible situation for myself? God must hate me." Or, "There isn't a God because why would God allow this happen to me?" Sometimes a being makes a pre-incarnate plan to have a disability, like losing the ability to walk or see. If they stray down a certain non-positive path, this is a way to balance accrued karma within the same incarnation, a preset balancing plan only to be set off in an incarnation if triggered. If a being accepts their unchangeable situation, their temporary limitations, forgive other human beings who might have had a hand in it, abandon their victimhood and or anger and live life to the fullest despite their circumstances, much karma is balanced out, much growth is made. Think of these incarnations or periods of an incarnation as an opportunity for much growth instead of looking at them as a punishment for deeds in a past incarnation. As we have stated, there is no judgment or punishment along a being's journey back to Source, only the need to balance karma. If other human beings treat you poorly due to your disability because they think you deserve what you got in this incarnation because of your deeds in a previous life, or they are simply being unkind, their actions toward you may generate karma for them. Forgive them and ignore their negativity while accepting your temporary limitations at the same time, as they know not what they do or say. It is possible that these adverse situations may also have been pre-incarnate planned with these other beings so that one's karma may be balanced out. This balancing of energy and experiences human beings have labeled karma exists for two reasons. One, it is a cosmic rule that ensures all players play fair before the end and do not ruin the overall game experience for other players. 2. Since all players, sparks of Source, are in reality one being, the oneness / Source, doing anything negative to another being is the same as doing it to oneself, and that oneself needs to make up with themselves before the experience is finished, because one cannot exist in totality with themselves, merged back with Source, without doing such. The debate of whether nature or nurture shapes a human being in an incarnation is one example of many similar debates where both sides are seen as one in a higher density viewpoint, where dualism, paradoxes, or functions are known to be part of the same mechanism. This dualistic debate is very similar to that of pre-incarnate plans, destiny, and free will. Nature is the sum total of all one's incarnations. Nurture, those beings and experiences that have a hand in it, might have been pre-planned or an act of free will. Nurture can play a large role in an incarnation if one allows it to, and one's nature is typically what grants it to or not. Once one has expanded their awareness adequately, the argument of nature versus nurture, and so many other dualistic thoughts based on confusion, fall by the wayside as truth is found on both sides and is rather part of the same function instead of being opposing ideas. The earthly saying, "You can't choose your parents," or "You can't choose your children," is inaccurate. In the planning for your next incarnation, you do choose your parents and they choose you. And as we stated, the roles could be reversed in a different incarnation. All is agreed upon and planned in advance once you make it past the early stages of third sub-density. One chooses their family, friends, lovers, rivals, and all in their incarnation that offers possible growth and spiritual progression. Life is not random chances of occurrences, though, because of the universal law of free will, chance in circumstances is always a possibility. Without the universal law of free will, all pieces on the multi-layered chessboard would move automatically in a predetermined way, and not much would be learned for Source to know itself more fully, and the sparks of Source would not find the experience that enjoyable, entertaining, and so on. If a human being continues putting off their pre-incarnate major plans or mission due to free will, their spirit guides and the spirit guides of other human beings, whether it is a group plan or not, orchestrate serendipitous circumstances to offer the human being or beings the opportunity to get on the preset path. Every incarnation is a dance of pre-incarnate planning, destiny, and free will. One may ask, if you learn the lessons in the inner planes, why incarnate in the outer planes to learn them again? One needs to experience and live the lessons, not just know them. If one reads a book about enlightenment and says, "That makes sense, I agree with that, I'm enlightened now," and then goes out into the world making the same mistakes and not living what they learned, what they agreed with, it would not matter much, would it? Knowing can be powerful, but only applying and practicing it in one's life offers liberation and grants true growth. We will expand upon what a third density being experiences in the inner planes after transitioning / dying. Human beings are merely one example of the countless versions of beings currently in third density. We will present 3 generalizations of what happens in the inner planes for third density beings: the early / lower, the middle, and the later / upper subdensities. There are 7 subdensities within every density level, thus third density has 7 subdensities within it. Some of the beings who are meant to go to the early inner planes temporarily get stuck on the earthly plane as ghosts and hang around low-level activities that emanate low-level energies. These are activities and energies they engaged in and created while they were incarnate. They are still craving and wanting certain vices to the degree that they strongly feel they have unfinished business or wants on Earth. They hang around incarnate human beings who have similar wants and cravings, soaking up the energy and living out the experiences vicariously. They hang around heavy drug users, heavy drinkers of alcohol, rape and lustful activities, orange ray and yellow ray chakra sexual acts, violence, murder, etc. They have been called hungry ghosts in some Asian cultures. In these cultures, the practice of offering them food or performing other acts is useless. To avoid them is simple. Do not perform the acts we have listed or similar negative acts, and they will not be drawn to you or the locations where you dwell. Some of these ghosts are aware they have started the transition away from their last incarnation, but are postponing the transition to the inner planes for a number of different reasons. Some of these ghosts are not fully aware they have transitioned and left their last incarnation and are so focused on the physical earthly planes and the repeating situation they are locked into that they are not aware of the spirit guides trying to assist them to the inner planes. At some point, they will recognize they have left the earthly physical plane, and the assisting guides are there to guide them to the inner planes so they can reincarnate. When ghosts have had enough, or at least realize they are not getting enough gratification in experiencing the cravings voyeuristically, they are guided to the inner planes to reincarnate. Since they are still in the early third sub-density planes, their preparation time is considerably shorter than those beings who have passed the early third sub-density stages. In comparison, these early third sub-density beings reincarnate automatically, as the lessons they are still facing do not take much explaining or preparing. These particular early third sub-density beings are only one type of ghost scenario. Sometimes the spirit guides of an incarnate human being work with a loved one who has recently transitioned, so the transition loved one can appear as a projected echo in the physical planes to deliver a parting message they feel is important. Some transition beings may do this to comfort the one they have left, so they will stop grieving. A certain period of grieving for missing a being one is close to is understandable, but heavy, continual grieving can hold a transition being closer to the physical earthly plane and hinder their progression. Strong continual grieving is a hindrance for both the griever and the one being grieved over. We understand a close loved one is missed, so we offer these words. Displaying a level of sadness for a period of time for missing the company of another being is understandable and fine. But know that there is no reason to be sad for the transition being, as they are very well in the inner planes and doing as they intended, continuing their journey. To continually grieve strongly is seen as selfish because it hinders the grieved over being's progression. Some human beings choose to celebrate one's life in positivity instead of having a somber ceremony after their transition. This we align with because it makes sense and is positive for all beings, incarnate and disincarnate. Another ghost scenario is when a being dies suddenly and is mentally confused about their current state. If it was not the pre-incarnate planned time or way for transitioning / dying, the being's subconscious mind, knowing it planned more time for balancing karma and achieving goals, may temporarily lock the conscious mind into a loop. The comparison would be when a human being is having a nightmare or an agitated dream, and they partially wake up and toss and turn and go right back into the same or a similar agitated situation in the next dream or a continuation of the same dream. The mind is caught between the subconscious and conscious state in an agitated loop where negativity is charged and played out. As with all ghost scenarios, guides eventually reach these beings mentally and they make their way to the inner planes to reincarnate, just as the human being eventually wakes up from their nightmare or nightmares. Early third subdensity beings who do not get caught up as shells of their physical selves, ghosts, on the earthly physical plane, go directly to the quick preparation and automatically reincarnate back into third density. There are libraries for learning in the inner planes for these early third subdensity beings, but they are not visited much, as the beings on this plane typically do not gravitate towards such type of learning material. Now we will cover the beings who go to the middle third subdensity inner planes after they transition. They are past the early stages of the third subdensity experience, so they have much more learning and preparing to do for their next incarnation. Their experience is the same as already mentioned. They are greeted at the start of the death transition, heal in the deep resting place, take a vacation-like break in their particular subdensity inner plane, and guides assist them in reviewing their last incarnation, and they learn and prepare for their next incarnation. Middle third subdensity beings acclimate to the inner planes while taking a vacation-like break in settings they were used to on Earth. They rest and relax in a house where the interior is entirely constructed by their imagination. After all, the universe is mental. Their house may overlook a lake or something pleasant, or reside in a nice suburban setting. They may spend time there with family and friends. Time does not exist in the inner planes, as the inner planes are situated in time and space, rather than the physical outer planes, which are moving through space in time. If karma needs to be balanced out with beings still incarnate, the disincarnate being may vacation or learn until the beings they have accrued karma with have transitioned into the inner planes as well. Eventually, guides pay them a visit at their vacation-like areas and nudge them to start preparing for their next incarnation. Eventually, they are persuaded to start preparing for their next incarnation in order to progress and continue their journey back to Source. The libraries in the School of Knowledge in the middle third subdensity inner planes provides books for learning any topic that is useful for the being. Unlike books on Earth, these books are activated by thought, going straight to the topic or lesson that the being is mentally seeking. One of these books that has gained notoriety on Earth by those who are able to etheric project and visit this library while still incarnate is the Book of Life, which is more well known on Earth in some circles as the quote-unquote Akashic Records. Lives and events can be looked up and used for examples in learning a specific lesson, topic, or experience. This offers the being an example they can draw from that helps them understand a similar experience or situation from their last incarnation and or to prepare for their next incarnation. All beings' incarnations are recorded in the Book of Life. Now we will cover the beings who go to the later third subdensity inner planes after their transition. As already covered, they are greeted in their transition, heal and rest in the deep resting place, have a vacation-like break, and then learn and prepare for the next incarnation. They do not need as much time acclimating to the inner planes because they have done it enough times. But time to rest and decompress is still useful before preparing for one's next incarnation. Their living conditions during their vacation-like break are akin to the wondrous locations on Earth. Views of gorgeous mountains, deep canyons, oceans, waterfalls, grand lakes, etc. Their school of knowledge is more complex because they are ready for more advanced learning and preparation. Besides books and other learning material, viewing rooms are available. A room where the being can more thoroughly view their past life and prepare for their next incarnation by also viewing parts of other beings' lives that are relevant for learning lessons and concepts. This is much like utilizing the Book of Life, but more advanced concepts are able to be disseminated and learned, and done in a more immersive manner. It is like a room with a full circle wraparound visual screen where one can jump to any time in others or one's life or display visual concepts to be explained. One's higher self assists in utilizing viewing rooms and aiding in explanations and understanding learning concepts. Since third density beings who are in the later stages of the third sub-density experience cover higher concepts and create more advanced learning plans, they require more sophisticated tools to adequately learn and be prepared. They have these tools available to them for this reason, not because they are better than early or middle third sub-density beings. No being is better or more valuable than another. All beings are seen as equal parts of Source in the oneness on their journey back to Source, back to the totality of themselves. A being's particular focal point of awareness may be further along the path back to Source than another, but that does not make a being superior than another. Again, the school of knowledge in the later third subdensity inner planes is more expansive, as learning and preparing for higher concepts requires more preparatory settings, materials, and tools. It has lush gardens with foliage that far surpass even the most prestigious university campuses or the most beautiful parks on Earth. There are many different complexes to visit in these inner planes. Many different rooms, buildings, and facilities. One that is notable is the tapestry room. The tapestry could be seen as the most brilliant piece of art ever to grace a museum. It continues horizontally down the hall, being lit up from light flooding through windows on the opposite side of the hall. It is quite expansive. Within the spiritual tapestry is a thread-like cord for every being who experiences a third density incarnation on a certain originating planet during its grand cycle, and that group or wave of beings' continued spiritual progress is recorded on it throughout the higher densities, no matter what planets these group of beings may reside on in their journey back with Source. Each possibility /timeline has its own tapestry. A being's thread is seen to entangle with other beings' threads that had a connection or some type of shared experience. If a being is very influential and has a hand in many other beings' experiences, their thread can be seen interacting with many other threads and can be thicker. The color of one's thread-like cord is also an indicator of one's vibration, their development. Even those still incarnate can visit these inner planes via etheric projection if their vibration, current grade level in the Cosmos School, allows them access. Rooms and facilities can be accessed, like the libraries, healing rooms, Temple of Light, Temple of Wisdom, Tapestry Room, and gardens, but some places are off limits to etheric projectors, as it is appropriate for some things to be kept secret while one is currently incarnate. The caretakers and guides can recognize that you are etheric projecting while still residing in a third density physical body, because they can see your silver cord trailing off to your third density body. It has not been severed like those who are currently disincarnate. Besides this indicator, the caretakers and guides simply know if you are currently incarnate or disincarnate because your aura is completely visible to them like an open book. You are only allowed in the tapestry room and other rooms if your vibration permits it, automatically granting you access. The tapestry room caretakers greet you with loving kindness and answer your questions. but they know it is not in your benefit to look into your future, so they do not permit you looking at your thread-like cord into your future. This would infringe upon your free will and could alter your perception of the future, thus possibly changing your choices in your current incarnation. Tapestry caretakers have light energy crystals that interact and light up different threads on the tapestry to assist in teaching about different incarnate experiences, scenarios, and events. If you were to see the end of the tapestry, it would be a brilliant shining white, as white is the color of all the color spectrums combined into one when the group of beings merge back with Source. Books in the libraries for these inner planes are as mentioned already. They are not like books on Earth you have to flip through manually, but are rather accessed mentally and open up to what you want to view or learn. Your vibration determines what you have access to in books. This is for your own benefit and is not a stringent hierarchical system that limits knowledge like a caste system on Earth does. It is like the school system on Earth, but every being raises their vibration and graduates grades based on their own motivation and chosen speed. A third grader is simply not shown university level material because they are not ready to properly digest or learn it yet. If a being wants to experience third density for a much longer period than other beings, it is absolutely fine and as it should be. Free will creates variation for a reason. An earthly caste system attempts to keep groups of human beings in the same place permanently and actively works against their progression instead of for it. A caste system is one of many methods negatively oriented third density beings utilize to keep others under them in a controlled pecking order. We end this subject with the return to the video game analogy to assist in explaining the third density experience in the cosmos. As when you play a video game on your console of choice at home, after you die in the game, an inexperienced player jumps right back into the game and tries again with little thought or planning as to what they are going to do differently, maybe only quickly taking into account one specific challenge or obstacle needing to be overcome. After a more advanced video game player dies, they take more time to contemplate their errors and think more deeply into strategies that may be used to get further in the game before dying. Even though they develop a plan, sometimes with the help of another human who has already beaten the level they are playing, it does not always work out as planned while playing the game again. These other players on the sidelines offering tips on how to succeed are like spirit guides, which we will talk about in a later subject. But most of the time the player is so wrapped up in the game that they do not hear the advice or understand it. All this is strikingly similar to what happens in third density, which is also played over and over again till graduating to fourth density, then onward progressing through all the densities, and eventually the game is finished and the player merges in full capacity back with Source after their high vibration grants them access to traverse a black hole within the cosmos. And that is not the end of it. One does not simply bliss out as Source forever at that point. This would become boring. There is no end. The experiences are infinite, as Source is infinite. Just as a video game player enjoys a different game after they have finished one, a being may enjoy the next cosmos. There are always more experiences to be had, either in the outer planes or inner planes where one can assist other sparks of Source in their journey, or have a caretaker or creative role in a local, galactic, or universal council. Doing so would be akin to the video game player enjoying a particular cosmos game so much that they replay it in a certain fashion or capacity to assist others who have not beaten the game yet. When the being wishes to move on to the next cosmos game, or move on to the next expansive cosmos game directly after finishing one, they do so. As Source is infinite, the amount of cosmos games to be experienced, enjoyed, entertained by, and learned from is infinite. Source is infinite, so learning about itself more fully is infinite. The process never ends. Look at how many different video games have been created on Earth, or all the diverse amounts of entertainment human beings have created on Earth. Source creates infinitely more than that for itself to play, enjoy, and learn from. As above, so below. As below, so above. Just as there are countless experiences to be had on Earth, there are endless experiences to be had in your infinite existence. Source is infinite, and since you are a spark of Source and Source at the same time in a timeless state, you are also infinite. You will never stop existing. Quote-unquote death is only a change of experiences, a transition from one experience to another. Let go of the weight that is the fear of death and allow yourself to fly while incarnate. Best to unshackle the illusory chains of fear that keep you a prisoner of your own mental making. Before the cosmos you are experiencing now, there was a previous grand cosmos experience created by Source. After the cosmos you are currently experiencing is finished, there is another different grand cosmos experience to enjoy and progress through. There is no end to the enjoyment, no end for Source to know itself more fully through infinite experiences. The duration of each cosmic experience by Source and merging back with itself, the expanding creation and the eventual coalescing, could be seen as Source exhaling and then inhaling over and over again. One mere exhale and inhale from Source is experienced as unfathomable eons of time for the players, the sparks of Source in each cosmic experience. This course is presented in video format for free to overcome book shadow banning and make its existence known. Now that you know it exists, it's recommended to proceed how this course is intended to be absorbed by book. The title of the book is The Cosmic Experience of One, an awareness expanding course for human beings. The information in this course is more effective and appropriate to be read in book form where one can pause and ruminate and meditate on the material as they read. Besides the low audio quality in the videos and the protection from targeted spoken words and censorship, the book is a much better way to understand and learn the material. The book contains two more subjects, 104.2 and 104.3, which is my way of thanking those who show their appreciation to my aiding services by purchasing the book. Since we currently live in a broken monetary system, without your show of monetary appreciation for my services, I can't get by and continue to perform service to others acts by writing more meaningful books. Purchasing the book not only shows your appreciation for my services and allows me to live in this monetary system, but the course's material will be easily accessible for your revisiting. To more fully absorb the material, it's recommended to read the book at least twice. You will understand why on your second reading. You can gain positive polarity by doing your part in sharing this awareness expanding course with others. Raising the collective's vibration is a team effort. We cannot do this alone. Your participation is required. Liking and subscribing are also actions that make this course seen by more human beings. A negatively oriented being learns information and keeps it to themselves so they can selfishly benefit over others. A positively oriented being learns information and wants others to benefit from it as well because they care, and they know that aiding others also aids themselves. This is true in more ways than one, as a being gains positive polarity for aiding others, and they benefit again when another's vibration is raised because it raises the whole collective's vibration, which assists all, including the first being who shared. All are connected, all are one. Comments and questions will be read, but I will not reply with comments, nor like comments, nor heart comments, nor interact in the comments section in any way. If comments or questions are found to warrant a reply, the reply will be made in a possible future video. If an account using the same or similar profile picture, channel name, or my author name interacts in any of the ways listed above or other ways, know that it's not me and is a human tool working for the negatively oriented human beings to capture and twist the information in this course or your perception, or smear the messenger. Likewise, human tools may create fake accounts on this platform or others in the same attempt to capture and twist this course's information. Official sources for me are listed in the description field below. Everything else is fake.